Welcome to the Enriched Nurse with your host, Dan Richmond. Enrich your personal finances, nursing career, and life.
The financial head-to-toe assessment is such a powerful exercise. Aside from understanding your entire personal finance picture, you can identify potentially thousands in savings for minor expenses to seeing how much debt and taxes are actually costing you. It provides everything you need to make smarter money decisions, budget, and plan effectively. Most importantly, I think it can provide you the motivation to take action and start growing your wealth. There are apps, services that can help with this, but I think it's wise for nurses to do it manually if they've never really done something like this before. I mean, we're talking like a few hours or so of your time for incredible insights into your money that could prevent you from working extra shifts and wasting tons of money. We have multiple ANCC accredited courses that can assist you. You might even be able to get paid to get smart with your money using employer education funds. Our financial head-to-toe course includes step-by-step instruction and a smart Excel sheet that will crunch a lot of the numbers for you. You'll learn my proven process that allowed me to take almost a year off, drop to part-time while raising kids, save up rapidly for a 20% down payment on a house, and invest heavily for years. The link is in the notes. You can also check out all of our learning pathways at enrichednurse.com. You can also do this just from the information I'm going to provide you in this episode. So let's dive in. A lot of what we do as nurses and others do depends upon assessment. The quality of the assessment can have unintended consequences. If you provide an incomplete assessment, you might implement the wrong intervention or pursue a path of further assessment that delays critical interventions. A stroke comes to mind as having the potential for drastic consequences when not recognized early. If I assume the onset of arm weakness is due to muscle injury, fatigue, or don't notice because it doesn't have a sudden onset, but it really is due to a stroke, I'm losing valuable treatment time, especially if I tough it out or I just ignore it. If my vision is blurry and I proceed to an ophthalmologist office instead of going to an ER, early signs of a stroke could be missed. I could be delayed in getting to the ER, especially if I'm someone who likes to downplay things. Might even miss the window for getting TPA if the issue is not recognized in time. A good nurse does good assessments. They investigate further when an assessment is off. I say hi to my patient. They look like their breathing is off, maybe labored, but their SAT's fine. I could investigate further or assume it'll just be okay, letting the next nurse figure it out. Upon further assessment, though, I listen to their lungs and I hear crackles. They have a wide open saline bag infusing. Maybe they went from 2 liters of oxygen to 6 liters to keep the same or lower normal SAT rating. Either way, intervention is required to prevent deterioration. They're probably going to need additional treatment. Sometimes a little bit of research can improve and hone your assessment. So let's say I know the patient has an ejection fraction of 25%. Their BNP is 1,000. Oh crap, did we just fluid overload them? That can be easy to fix early on. Sometimes we need to collect data over time for the right assessment. Think trending lab values, vital signs, or measurements. When it comes to personal finance, good assessment alone can greatly improve where you stand. It's something anyone can and should do. Even if you have no clue about finances and money, which is probably unlikely, performing a financial head-to-toe assessment and doing a chart review will give you great insight into your personal finances. It's easy to not give our finances a real good once-over. We may think everything's fine, there's nothing to cut or improve, but there probably is. My brother-in-law went years paying for Netflix subscription without even realizing it, or watching Netflix. And this wasn't like a catastrophic mistake, but $500 over a few years is a lot of money for something you don't use. If you have several of these types of things, that could be a huge drag on your finances. When I moved to Oregon from Hawaii, I kept my same phone number with the same service provider. I didn't notice I was still paying a 4% Hawaii tax plus local charges and fees. Not only that, my plan was actually obsolete. And the fine people at the telephone company were charging half the cost for a similar plan. Unfortunately, they didn't tell me about it. I don't like overpaying for things. I was paying $150 a month. Nobody told me. No courtesy call or email. No one said, hey, would you like our same or similar plan for half the price? I was also paying about $10 on Hawaii-specific taxes and fees alone. I got an Oregon number and updated my plan and started paying about $80 a month. Eventually, I got a new carrier and started paying $30 a month for cell service just as good. That's a difference of $70 per month or $840 per year. That's like 16 hours of work or so as an RN. That's a lot of time and money to pay for ignorance. $150 versus $30 per month is a lot more. That's $120 a month, or $1,440 worth of savings with no loss in value. Thinking long-term pays off too. Since I made that change 10 years ago, I've saved $14,400 and only paid $3,600 for years of similar cell service. I haven't had a landline since I lived in Hawaii either. That's the power of a good assessment and wising up. Something seems off. Am I paying too much for cell service? Within your personal finances, the potential is almost limitless for revising where your money goes or overpaying for things. What's the normal rate? Oh, that's a lot different. Let's look into this more. What I'm paying taxes in another state, and I'm paying for unlimited, but I only use about 2 gigs of data for 2 lines, and 2 gigs only costs $5 a month? These are pretty minor examples. You get yourself in big trouble when your ignorance is expanded to big expenses, like paying thousands of dollars more per year in interest, on debt, or paying too much in taxes. That is where you get into real money loss. It can be catastrophic to your financial health and getting ahead. This is why assessment is the first step of the enriched nursing process. It informs everything else and provides immediate insight into what is going on. The more complex your spending habits, accounts, debts, and assets, the longer it will take. But really, we're talking a matter of hours over a short period of time to potentially save thousands immediately and make a plan that can potentially grow to millions. Ask yourself, are you worth that little bit of time and energy for a good head-to-toe financial assessment? With all the charts you've reviewed, the bodies you've poked and prodded, and getting up close in other people's business, don't you think you should review your own? My wife and I took over half a year off and traveled for a few months just for fun. And this was during the Great Recession. A key factor in figuring out how to do all that was assessing our finances. We didn't know how much it would cost us to travel and didn't want to run out of money. I considered how much everything had cost us while working and living in a house. I thought about where our money had gone and would go. Some things would be more expensive on an epic road trip, but some things would be eliminated, like utilities, rent, etc. Taking the time to assess everything gave us the confidence to plan and actually quit our jobs and embark on the trip during that Great Recession. If you want to buy a home, retire someday, retire early, work less, or take a lot of time off, or some other costly endeavor, or even just accumulate a lot of money, a little bit of assessment will provide the insight to show you how. Even if you don't make it to step 2 of the Enriched Nurse process, you'll still be better off just by doing a comprehensive assessment. So here's how to conduct a financial head-to-toe. You want to look at everything and as much of your financial history as you can, going back at least a year, maybe longer for some things like taxes. Initially, you'll need to collect some data. Make a list of all your debts. If you know how to draw squares and rectangles, you can actually make your own. Pretty easy to do. So we want to know every loan and credit card balance you have. We also want to know what your minimum or monthly payment is. What's the interest rate? Does it have a promotional rate? When does that expire? How much of each payment goes to the principal, or paying down the amount you owe, and just to interest, the cost of the loan? What's my annual interest cost? How much will I pay if I just make the minimum payment? Organize all of this info in a simple worksheet. Next, we want to look at your paychecks too. We want to know how much money you make from all sources, especially after taxes. Do you make money from dividends or interest, alimony, gifts, royalties, rent? You want to look at all sources. List out your pre-tax pay and your take-home pay. Your take-home pay is after tax and payroll deductions. Your pre-tax will likely be your gross, but that can include non-taxable income like mileage reimbursement. If you don't contribute to a HSA or have medical or dental premiums coming out of your paycheck, you can use your Social Security wages for your actual pre-tax pay. It's probably pretty accurate. Depending on the paycheck, the gross income could include things like expense reimbursement and group life insurance, which shouldn't be considered part of your pay and wouldn't be subjected to Social Security and Medicare tax. Most nurses will have deductions for benefits like insurance, cafeteria food, dues, and more. You want to make a note and list all these out plus their total amounts. Remember, the goal here is to account for every dollar and where your money goes. We want the full picture. Your latest paycheck should have year-to-date amounts and help you figure out your actual take-home pay. Remember, there's 52 weeks in a year. Nurses tend to be paid every 2 weeks. That means you have 26 pay periods in any given year. If you simply multiply 2 paychecks by 12 months to figure out your income, you'll be leaving out a couple paychecks and underestimating your annual pay. Your per month pay is probably a little bit higher than you realize when you average it out.
keeping in mind those 26 pay periods. Your previous year's pay is fine if it's not much different from the current year, but if you want to project a close estimate of your annual pay when you're mid-year, simply divide the year-to-date amount so far by how many paychecks there have been. Before we move on, I frequently hear nurses saying they can't figure out their paychecks. Looking at a lab results page in the electronic medical record is probably harder than your paycheck. It has different colors, tons of abbreviations, and weird little icons like an exclamation point. Plus, every few months they do an update, which changes the look of the page. Every line of the results page can have different normal value range and even exceptions. To make matters worse, other diagnostics like imaging can be included, with dictated reports from radiologists and the like. Special lab values may need to be looked at separately to know what it is and what it measures. I mean, come on, if you can do this, you can figure out how to read your paycheck correctly. It kills me when I hear nurses saying they don't understand their paychecks. If there's two things you should understand every 2 weeks, it's your paycheck and your time card. If your time card's wrong, your paycheck's wrong. If your paycheck's wrong, you're not getting paid what you're owed. You've just traded a bunch of your time in your life and provided a really valuable service, and then you're not going to get paid for that? Talk to your coworkers. If there's things on your paycheck you don't understand, engage human resources, talk to your manager. I mean, I've known nurses who didn't realize they weren't getting paid like the charge nurse differential for years. And I've also known others where they were getting a differential and they didn't know what it was. So they're getting paid more. That's not the typical issue nurses have. Usually it's they're missing pay. I wish we could all be that lucky, but most likely the errors aren't in your favor. So really important to figure the paycheck thing out. I mean, small amounts can add up to big amounts of money over time. So, I mean, just look at your paycheck every 2 weeks. Look it over. Like I said, if there's areas you don't understand on it, enlist some help.
I break down real nurse paychecks and common pay scales in my course, Maximize Nurse Pay and Negotiate It. If you gain even just one insight from the course, it will pay for itself. I cover way more than just pay stubs, though. I teach pay boosting strategies one student described as throwing out gold. Plus, there's easy ways to start negotiating effectively as a nurse that I cover. All of our individual courses have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if you buy the course and you don't feel like you cost some gold, just get a refund, hassle-free. It's also included in my all-access nursing CE membership, so you could also get it for free when you become a member and use your employer education funds to pay for it. Don't be the nurse complaining about being underpaid and that it's not possible to understand these pay stubs. Enroll today.
So after we looked at our debt and our income, you want to take a look at your savings. So consider all your savings, checking, investments, any other accounts that have assets or cash. Your retirement brokerage accounts should be listed here. Make a note of any interest rates, how much you're contributing to each one and their balances. Put them in a simple grid or use a worksheet, just like we did for the debts. If your grid's mostly empty and your eyes are wide and eyebrows high, hopefully it's because you see the obvious problem here rather than just having had a code brown. So tangible major assets like a car, real estate, gold bars, Beanie Babies, etc., and their fair market value should be noted as well. Try to be accurate in your value though. For your Beanie Baby collection, don't use the peak value from 1999. You want like the current resale value, which is probably not very much. I like to use Kelley Blue Book trade-in values for my vehicles, which provide, fair value and probably underestimate the true value. There's a few other online auto values you can use. I wouldn't bother trying to figure out value accounting for things like a computer, stuff, furniture. I mean, the resale value is pretty negligent. So in this section, we're talking just assets that have a significant value and there's a marketplace that you can sell them relatively easily. All this information should be sorted logically with the value of the balances, monthly payments, their average contributions amounts in there. I include assets in this area even if I owe money on them. This helps you also figure out if it's really an asset. You could have bought your house as an asset and a debt, but maybe it's a liability and not much of an asset if you don't have much equity in it. So if I owe more money than what my house is worth, it's just become a pretty darn big liability. Assets are things that hold value over time. They increase in value, produce things of value, or generate money. An ideal asset does all of that. Liabilities are things that cost more money over time and have upkeep costs. A depreciable asset would be something of value that tends to lose value over time, like your car. Now we come to the harder part. Since this could be pretty broad, we want to look at the rest of our expenses. So I would start with your taxes and your deductions if you haven't done that already. Next, think broader. Look at your ongoing expenses like your utilities, insurances, memberships, and all other expenses. If you use a debit or credit card, this should be pretty easy to go back and look. You can simply download the data to a spreadsheet. Pretty easy to sort that. And then, use some cutting and pasting, some auto sum functions. That'll save you a lot of time. When you sort alphabetically, make sure the columns remain associated. Like you don't want to sort one column, but not have it connected to the other data in the other columns. Usually when I do this, it's got like a date, my name, the actual expense, whether it was a credit or a debit, things like that. So if the raw data is separated into categories like automotive or gas, or even better, groceries, that will make this go a lot quicker. Figuring out all of your expenses over a year will probably take the longest, but it also gives you a lot of insight into your money and your life. I bundle my expenses into broader categories, like transportation, which would include car costs, maintenance, insurance, parking, gas, registration, etc. A housing category could include maintenance, rent, mortgage, insurance, and property taxes. You can also look at receipts or paper statements. That's going to be a little more tedious. If you don't have a lot of your expenses captured online, you'll want to track expenses for a couple months to get an idea of where your money is going. You may have to log into individual accounts, and not all utilities let you pay with a credit card, so you might have to look at like a bank account statement or go into the actual utility account to get good insight into your bills. So eventually, once you've got everything tracked and categorized, you're going to want to annualize it. Once you've compiled all the information, sorted it into the usable format, give yourself a nice pat on the back and go buy yourself a latte. You just separated yourself from people who have no clue about their personal finances, and now you can do some analysis. It might take a little bit of time to get into all these accounts and do all of this, but I almost guarantee what you do as a nurse and are managing and analyzing and assessing is way more difficult than your personal finances. A good assessment can guide treatment and care plans, avoid catastrophe, result in good outcomes, or simply be recorded and lost in time. Sadly, that last place is where I think some of my best nursing assessments have wound up in the medical record. So next time, we'll talk about how you can use this assessment to tell a few financial vital signs: your net worth, your savings rate, your debt ratio, and your expense percents. You can use all the information you collect to calculate all these things. So get to work, collect all this information.
I hope you take advantage of some of our accredited education. If you would leave a review for the show, greatly appreciate it. This show is about helping nurses make better financial decisions and living better lives and getting the most out of their careers. So the more nurses who are rating the show and spreading the word about it, the more nurses we can actually help. And also, if you subscribe to our email list, that'll get you exclusive discounts on our courses. Plus, we have a bunch of free courses and a starter kit that you can get access to start improving your finances today.
All right, thanks for joining.